Hi, I'm Shawn Douglass, an actor and director in Chicago, Illinois, and also a member of the theater department faculty at Northwestern University. And this is An Actor's Arc. A magnificent actor, Steppenwolf ensemble member Ora Jones takes us down her artistic path and what her work means to her. Hi, Ora Jones. Welcome to An Actor's Arc.
Hi, Shawn with a W. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. It's good to see you. Hey, so each of these episodes, we're starting with a question that revolves around the idea of either what is the first time you felt the impulse to act, or what's the first moment you had an inkling of yourself as an actor or a performer? Do you remember?
That's so bizarre. It's a hard question to answer because there are for me there are two different things. I can tell you the first time that I thought, "Oh my God, I'm an actor," and which has nothing to do with the first time I was actually being an actor, where living my life as an actor. Those are two different things for me, anyway.
Sure.
I was a kid. We were living in Panama. We were having a great day as a child, living in the Air Force and living in Panama and playing with Tonka toy. You know, when you're a girl and you grow up in the Air Force, it's Barbie dolls and Tonka trucks. I woke up one morning and it was like, you know what they call the V8 moment, where you're suddenly like, oh my God, like suddenly I was being reminded of something. How's that?
Hmm.
But I remember waking up, I was 6, maybe 7, and I woke up and said out loud, "Oh my God, I'm an actor. I'm an actor."
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm actually
That's
not. It's bizarre.
extraordinary.
It was as though I had wasted the first 6 years of my life playing with Barbie dolls and Tonka trucks. How dare I? That being said, I mean, how do you go about it when no one you know is that? No one's living like that. No one in your family, no one you know. It's not a world that you know. I was 6 or 7 living in Panama, living in the Air Force.
Do you have any idea where that impulse came from?
No.
Were you playing dress up? Were you with your friends? Were you?
No. Well, we're doing what you do. You're a kid. You mean you're just playing, and
What do
you're a
you
kid.
attribute that now to?
I still don't know. Everyone's. I don't think of it very often, but when I do, I think, gosh, what the, what made that happen? Um, you're living in a world called the Air Force. You're not quite sure what all of that means. You know that there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more moving parts to the name Air Force. Something over that called the military. And you're living in a place called Panama, and there are things about it that you understand, like palm trees and really interesting animals. And there
And
are
was your father in the Air Force? Your mother?
actually
Both?
both of them were. That's how they met. They're both in the Air Force. By the time I was born, my mother had since retired. She hadn't been in it for very long. I don't know how long it was, maybe 4 years, something like that, 4 or 5 years. My dad was in it a total of like 26 years.
Okay.
Um, I will say that I've never thought that I should be doing anything else. There are other things that are of great interest to me. I'm not great at them or good at them even. Um, I remember when I was in high school, I thought I could be a biologist. Love biology. Um, I'd probably be a really good physicist if I were better with mathematics, which then you kind of need to be good at that. But it was nothing that I pursued. Like when it comes to things like physics, the larger ideas, I totally get them, but all the parentheses and pluses and minuses are things that escape me.
So let me ask you, from this moment of waking up, bolt upright, and having this thought come to you, and being in a different country and in the world of the military, how long did it take until um, some piece of that being an actor came into being for you, and how did that happen?
uh I oh, there are days when I do regret having done this, but then I think, well, how else was it supposed to happen? Who do you talk to in a moment like that? I went to my mother and I said, I'm an actor. I'm an actor. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I am an actress. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. And my mother thought, I remember well, I don't remember the look on her face. I just, to this day, like I talked to her about it from time to time, and she's like, yeah, that's the thing you said. That is the thing you said. And my mother is one of those people, I consider myself to be blessed and very fortunate to have the mother that I had, because her feeling about her kids and life was, it basically ran like this: I have no idea what you're talking about, but if you like it, I love it. How can I help? So, although they're, and of course, when you're a kid, you're running at them every 5 seconds. And my mother's like, okay, all right. If this is the thing you want, she somehow in Panama found somebody somewhere doing theater. Somebody in Panama in 19 was doing a production of Oliver and looking for kids because, Oliver. And what I remember is that there was a man sitting in a rocking chair and I was standing in front of him in a wide open space that I'd never seen before. And they had tried to teach me in like 5 seconds the song "Where Is Love" from Oliver, and could I sing it like in 5 seconds? And I remember being terrified, less about that man as a true actor, less afraid of the man sitting in front of me in the rocking chair, more afraid of the fact that I did not know the song because they'd only given me 5 seconds to learn it, and kind of pissed off about that at the grand old age of 7. So, like, really? That's all I get, and now I have to do this? Of course, now it's a way of life for us. So, but yeah, I remember that, and I have a feeling that my mother thought, "Oh, please let this be the thing that scares this out of her system."
And did you get cast?
No, I didn't. No, I stood there in the middle. I was a stick of wood in the middle of that room. I knew nothing, and I could not even begin to
I thought
I
maybe
tell
you would
this
be
story
an
as a
urchin.
testament to my mother's incredible, I don't know, just like what you, as a parent, what you do as a parent. I grew up in a household of great structure, and when I say great, I mean as in lots of it. Structure and very very strict upbringing. With when one of your parents is Catholic and the other is Baptist, you're just gonna, man, they're both in the military, and this is where you are. Yeah, you're gonna learn what structure means. But at the same time, they just kind of, I don't know if they just thought, I don't know what language she's speaking. If you hear something that makes sense, put her in that boat and see where she goes. But that's kind of how I grew up. And
you share all that about having that kind of structure,
mhm.
religious structure, moral structure, military structure, it seems obvious you would want to be an actor.
Please tell me you're joking about that.
No,
Well,
give
although
me something.
there's an
Give me
incredible
something
amount of
else,
structure in our
right?
business. There's just, I will say that there's an incredible amount of structure in our business, and how
What do
do
you
I
mean by
say?
that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, there are things that simply must happen in what we do. At a certain point, to you must be able to relate the story that you're telling to people. It's great to have a really wonderful imagination, but there's a difference between having an idea. How do you translate the idea in your brain to a room full of people? How do you do that? Um, I actually years ago had a really great conversation with someone who worked in construction
Mm.
about how there's a blueprint for something, whether it is literal blueprint, something you can roll up a piece of paper with lines and squiggles and things on it, um, and uh, and a blueprint as in I have an idea, because even that piece of paper started with something in here that or here or here or something occurs to you and you say, "Oh, you know what?" So I remember having a really interesting conversation with this person about how to build something.
Mm.
And uh if you work in construction, you can see you can have a literal experience, a very tangible experience of an idea coming to life. It starts with
Physical.
something.
There's a physical result, right?
There is a physical result, and there is to a certain extent in this business. But uh, you know, you have to build that world, especially if you work in theater. If you
Mm-hmm.
work in theater, you have to build that world every day, over and over again. And you look at an empty space and you know that something is going to happen there. You know why? Because you signed a piece of paper that said so. And so your job is to go out and build that world every single time. And I find that interesting. I look at an empty space and I often think, especially like, there you are before half hour, and sometimes you know, you come in, you sit down in an empty theater, and you know that in an hour, or maybe a little before, depending on when they open the house, that life will be ongoing. That this experience that you've been rehearsing for however long you've been rehearsing it is going to happen again. But you don't really know how it's going to turn out.
Hmm.
You've got a roadmap, you've got a thing that everybody has said. This is why people think actors are crazy. Actors are not really crazy. This is how it works for us. We what we spend our time doing is practicing what we are going to say, remembering what someone else is going to say to us, how we're going to move, where we're going to move, what we're going to pick up, what we're going to put down, what we're going to wear while we're doing all of that. What the lights are going to look like, if there is sound, what the sound is going to do. We have to remember all of those things bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, and still and do this in front of people in a on a platform somewhere, and make it look like a total surprise every time we do it. Like a complete and utter surprise. The digital age has a lot to offer. One of the things it does not offer is the live experience.
Mm.
If you are if you are in a space with people and you are telling them a story, the one thing you need to remember as someone in live performance and anywhere, but particularly in live performance. I mean, it's true no matter what part of this performing business you occupy, but particularly with live theater, what you need to remember is that the audience is another character in your story. They they
How
they they are in a bizarre position because there's no point in being in live theater if there's no one to give witness to it, which is different from, hey, everybody look at me, I'm being fabulous, everybody sit down and shut up, I'm being fabulous. That is not what I mean. I mean people who work for, write for, direct for, produce for, perform for live theater. You do it because there are people. You do it in the hope that there are people who will come and give witness to it and give life to it. You're there then. Be here now. Be here now is is my mantra about all of this. You've got to respect your audience. You cannot spoon feed them, and you can't let them get away with anything. You can't just tell them what's going to happen. You have to invite them. You always have to invite them. It's a it's such a great party. It's such a great dance. It just is. And you
and
have
what do
to
you say to the person who says, "I don't know what you're talking about, Ora"? How do you invite an audience into your experience? How does that happen?
well, for myself, there's only one way that I can do that, and that is to be as honest as I can possibly be while I'm standing on a platform, saying words, wearing fabrics, standing in light, singing to music, handling props, sitting on furniture. Um, it, when someone says that what does it mean to be alive in the theater? That's my answer. My answer is, I'm here with you. I I can't make you. I cannot force you. I cannot coerce you. I cannot hypnotize you in any way to participate in this. The audience has hilarious free will in a theater. I just do.
You said a very interesting thing, which was you can't demand that the audience
You can't.
uh, attends, engages,
Nope.
but you can, by playing honestly, by playing truly. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
put words in your mouth now. By being human,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you can invite them into the experience, and whether they
It's
accept
all
the
you.
invitation then is up to them.
You hope that the reason that they are there is to cooperate with that idea. You hope. The thing about theater for me is that it is one of the safest places in the world. And I say this often. It is one of the safest places in the world for you to entertain an idea that might not be comfortable for you. Because unless you turn to the person next to you and say, oh my God, I can't possibly, you can sit in your little seat in the dark and experience someone else living a story that you may not ever have to experience in your life, entertain ideas you've never thought about, and if you have, they're not things you want. You you have an opportunity to ask yourself questions and challenge yourself and break down barriers and watch other people experience things that you could not possibly, you, at least for yourself, you don't think you could possibly endure. And you get to sit there in the dark and watch someone else do that and ask yourself all of those questions.
Mm.
Nobody has to know you're asking yourself those questions. Nobody has to know what you're going through, unless it's a student matinee and you have to write it for class. And even then, you can make up something if you really don't want to talk about the thing that's touching your heart. But for me, that is the most dangerous and exciting and best thing about a live performance. You, but you can only invite people to do that. You can't make them. Your one job is to do everything you can to tell your story as honestly as you possibly can, as well as you can, as honestly as you can. It's what I as a performer find exciting. Sometimes there are questions that get answered for me when I see the costume. There are things that get answered for me when I see the set. There are certain things that get answered for me when I pick up a prop. You know, we did at Steppenwolf the production of Three Sisters that Tracy Letts adapted, and there were some really fabulous people who were in that, and I felt very very blessed to be a part of it. And I'm getting weepy now. I nearly burst into tears sitting there at a table during tech. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again 5,000 times because it's why it's called tech. It's not about you.
That-
You still have to do it, but it's not really about you being
That's
fabulous.
the
It's about,
technical rehearsal, just for the uninitiated.
yes, this is where the lights, the sound, the costumes, where everything other than the actor comes into it. And so there we are doing Three Sisters, and I was playing Olga, and I'm sitting at a table, supposed to be writing something in a journal. And in a moment of, wow, sometimes it really is like that, isn't it? I opened the journal. There was writing in it. The pen worked. There was
Mm.
actual space to write. I had a little watch on my costume that worked. Everything worked. Everything was working. Everything was alive.
Mm.
And I don't know, it touched me in a way that doesn't happen very often. There are moments of clarity. There are moments of where all of a sudden everything just sort of comes together in a way that you can't count on, that you can't build. There's so many unknowns. There's so much uncertainty. All you can do is your best. That's all you can do.
Hey, you are talking as the masterful artist that you are at this point in your career.
Oh my goodness. I wish everyone I knew was sitting here listening to that statement.
So let's cast our mind back to the beginning of the arc of your career, or of your artistic life, maybe better put. So, did you return from Panama? And if so, did you find yourself involved in the theater in school, in high school, in college?
Yeah. Hey, I knew it was the thing I was supposed to be doing.
Hmm.
I just didn't know how I was going to go about it. I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know how it was going to happen. So, I spent my childhood as a child. Thank goodness. I got to have a childhood. I did plays in grade school, junior high, high school, college. I did, but I did other things too. I was in marching band.
So here you
Yes,
are,
part of it. Yes, I did
middle
lots of
school,
things.
high school, college. You're doing other things, but you're also acting. And
Mm-hmm,
and as you came through that period of your education, what did you
mm-hmm.
feel like you knew about acting? What did you feel confident in or jazzed by? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe the flip side of that, what did you feel you didn't know if you felt you didn't know something?
There's a weird thing about something feeling innate to you. Uh, it's not that it makes you lazy. It's just that you don't worry about it because you're pretty sure it's going to happen. Maybe it's a thing that happens when you're young as opposed to when you get older and you think, "Oh my god, where's the next job coming from?" or whatever else. When I was a kid, it wasn't, I didn't worry about it. I thought, well, this is the thing that's just going to happen. And I did my place and I was very serious, but I was also very bad. I was very bad at it. That's not a thing you know in the moment. That's a thing
Hmm.
that you look back on and go, holy crap, why didn't somebody stop me? Um,
Were there things you felt that you were good at, parts of it?
I thought I was great at all of it. I thought I was great at all of it. Here's the thing that someone told me. There are people who are naturally brilliant at at whatever they do in this business, whether it's writing or directing, performing. Um, there are people who are just naturally, they just got the candy. I mean, they just have it. It's the thing you want. And they are just naturally good at it. It's great to have a natural affinity for something. But here's the part that no one wants to hear, and I'm going to say it now. You never stop learning. You never stop learning. If you stop learning, then you stop growing, and um, you will either become bored or people will become bored with you.
So, can I ask you to reflect back
Yes.
about some of those things um, that you know now that you didn't know as a young actor? What
Well,
was
that's the first
what are the
thing is
things
that you
that you
never stop
learned?
learning.
Yeah.
You just don't. You
So, what are some of those things that you learned?
what someone said to me, and I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" Someone once said to me that if you do the usual, you go through your college training or your conservatory training or whatever it is that you choose to do, you will spend the first 20 years of your career trying to unlearn everything that you think you learned in your
Mm.
training. That your career actually doesn't start until 20 years into your career. And at first I thought, what kind of crap is that? Because that's not true for everyone. The first thing to learn is just because somebody said something doesn't mean that it's true. The thing that I have learned, the most important thing that I've learned, is that you have to keep tabs on who you are and what you want.
Mm.
And what you will find often, and I speak as a performer, sometimes you think that being dramatic and being just so different is your job. That's not your job. Your job is to tell your stories as well as you can, as honestly as you can. And those things are, and your definition of honesty and realness and authenticity, that's going to change over time. If there's one thing that I have learned that is absolutely true, is it is that everything changes all the time. And that's hard. If you're not someone who can embrace change, this is going to be a really hard life for you
Mm.
because your life changes all the time. You do a play, how many weeks have you got from first rehearsal to the last performance? In some place like Chicago, it could be as quick as 6 weeks. It could be 3 months, but it's going to change. It changes all the time. If you're not great with change, I don't know that, especially stage, well, just performing is a good career choice
Mm.
because you got to embrace it. And it's hard. And when I say things change, the contracts end, the money comes and goes, the opportunities come and go, depending on who's the latest, greatest. and you think that making every connection on earth and totally glad handing and networking 24 hours a day is what's going to give you a career. You might make connections with that, but you might not. And if you become the total glad hander 24 hours a day, there are some people who don't want to know you because of that.
Hmm.
This business, here's the thing that I have learned about this business is that this business is a lot like life. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. So if you're going to do, make sure you know why. Make sure you know why you're doing what you're doing. And the worst part of that is that you might know that in that moment, and 5 years from now, you'll look at it and go, oh my God, what was I thinking? You have to learn how to forgive yourself. You have to learn how to forgive other people. And believe me, that is some shit you won't know until you're just too old to care anymore. Some things take literal time, just literal time. If you're going to get into this business, don't get into this business so that people will like you. Don't do that. This business can be one of the most beautiful experiences in the world. You will meet fabulous, exciting people. You can be a fabulous, exciting person. But if you get into this business so that people will like you, or so that you can be rich and famous and everyone will pay attention to you, please, dear God, don't do that. Please find something else to do. Not because it won't happen, just because the one thing I never want anyone to do is wake up one day and wonder who they are because of this business. I don't want anyone ever to wake up and think that their whole life depends on whether someone likes you, whether they clap for you, whether your contract says $2,000 a week as opposed to $50 a week. You've got to
Nora,
get.
why does that make you so emotional?
I think it's about a lot of things. You will experience in this business people have no respect for what you do. None. And a lot of those people are in this business. We are self-effacing as performers to the point of death, to the point where we don't know how to ask for respect. Our culture in America, as I've said before, often does not respect us. We're circus clowns. And I say that with all the respect in the world for circus clowns. What upsets me is how many of us live with such low self-esteem, such low self-worth. Uh, um, how little. The great thing is how little it takes to make us happy, you know. But what's bad is that people think they can throw us literal peanuts and that that's okay. Especially after, during the pandemic, and we're still in it. It's April 1st, 2021, and we're not done yet, and we won't be for a long time. Just looking at this, looking at how businesses, large and small, are operating, how they're functioning, how they're making changes, and how they're allowed to do that, and what support they get. And no one is talking about that with live theater. No one's
Hmm.
talking about that. The theaters are not open. We're not essential according to American culture. We're we're a comic book. We are we're not real people. And what we do is not real. And there are so many of us who are losing our homes, our health insurance, who are losing we're losing our lives and our livelihoods. And no one is coming to our rescue. because we are a hobby. We are a thing that people do when they have nothing else to do. We are, you know, it wasn't that long ago, like the 1800s, they wouldn't even bury us if we dropped dead on the side of the road. We are less than all the time. And I find that very upsetting. And then if we do succeed, if we do have some authority, we have clout, we have money, suddenly we're spoiled and we don't deserve it, and we don't do anything that, because ultimately we don't do anything that matters.
Mm.
And that is complete bullshit. What we do, what is imperative for any culture, is a corner of it that shows a mirror of it to itself. Not just to be incendiary or accusatory, but again to invite, to say, this is what is happening with us right now. What do you want to say about it? How do you feel about it? And so people will write stories to be performed on a stage. And people will shine lights on that. The red light, the blue light, the green light, the something light that says, this is a thing that is happening right now, and this is how I tell this story. The fabrics of the costumes that say, this is what this story is. And the performers telling these stories, speaking these words, moving their bodies, engaging their voices, to tell their community that this is a thing that is happening. How do you feel about it? That's what's amazing about going to a theater, is to see your story, any story. And what
And
hurts me is the lack of appreciation for that, the lack of acknowledgement for that. That even if it's a comedy that you're rolling on the floor, you can't believe how funny it was, it's still a mirror of your life somewhere. And how little attention is paid. How little attention, how little money, how little support, how little encouragement, how little appreciation is paid to the people who do this. We matter. And when I see people who want to get into this business because they have a story to tell and they're looking for resonance, they're looking for someone who will listen to it, give witness to it,
mm-hmm.
who understands it and respects that. And they don't get that. It's very hard to say to them, and that's a thing that might be going on your entire life. Because this is the culture we live in, and this is how they think about what we do. Do you know that? Do you know that
Can I
there?
can I push
Yeah,
back or sort of engage with that just a little bit?
yeah.
Because you live in the same town that I do, in Chicago, and we certainly have patrons of the theater
Yes, we do.
who
God
who
bless.
are rabid and engaged and enthusiastic, who see 3 or 4 shows a week, some of them,
Mm-hmm.
uh, who I know offer the kind of appreciation that you're mentioning.
Absolutely.
And uh, and so I'm not trying to negate what you're saying at all, but I do feel like there's also a balance in that there are people out there.
There are. It's the same four people. But the other question for me is always, how do you how do you, I mean, we can try to do programming, we can try to write plays, we can try to tell stories that will include more people to get them in the door. Um, we can do that. I mean, we can try to do that. You introduce diversity, you introduce inclusion. You do. I mean, these are especially in 2021. It's not just imperative as a way to make money. It is imperative as if our mission statement is as the performing arts to reflect what is happening in our society and to include all of those voices. That's imperative, not just for
Yes.
money, not just to keep your theater open, but because they exist. Those people exist and they have voices, and it is our responsibility to bring those voices onto the stage.
Because you mentioned one of the important things to know is what you want to do in this artistic life, and that it's important to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, I have a sense, I think, in what we've been talking about what you want to do in the theater. And I think you've shared at least where you are now with that.
Mm.
But I wonder, um, who do you feel you are now? And who do you feel you were at some earlier time in your career? And what's the change that's happened?
Well, when I first came into this business, I knew this was the thing I wanted to do, but I knew it in the way that, let's just say that if breathing were a voluntary act, I would be in trouble. And that is how I feel about being a theatrical performer. It is an involuntary act for me. It's the thing that answers it. There are people, look, there are people who come into this business and then they leave it. There are people who were doing other things. They had other careers, what have you, and then they came into this business. It is not not everybody's a lifer, and that's okay. You know, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it interests you, sometimes it doesn't. There are people with plenty of other things to do in the world. This is the only thing I want to do. This is the only thing that makes me happy. This is the only thing that I do that makes me feel like I'm doing any good in the world. Um,
And what made you happy about it as a young person?
well, as a young person, I just thought it was fun and I got paid. My first audition was my first show in Chicago. And it ran for a year and a half. Woof, woof, woof. I just thought I
What was
was
that?
it. Do you remember Little Shop of Horrors?
Yes.
In 1812 when it was at the late great Candlelight Dinner Playhouse. That was my first show.
Mm.
Um, and there were hilariously talented and fun people involved. And I'm not from Chicago. Uh, so to just sort of land in the middle of this and meet all of these really great people was just, I mean, I just thought that was what life was supposed to be. I guess if anything has changed, it's become about what do you think your voice is? What do you think your priorities are? Because I didn't really have any. My priority was that I wanted to act, and I didn't care who hired me, and I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about anything. I just wanted to perform. That's all I wanted to do, and that is still a big part of my world, man. It is just total love of the game. I love it. I love
Why?
it.
Why? What is it that, I mean? You've
I
talked
love
very.
exploring. I love exploring stories. I love telling other people's stories. I love finding out what makes other people tick and why they do the things they do. Um, I have gotten to a point in my career here. I will say this is a thing that I do recognize that is different. I've gotten to a point where I would almost rather just rehearse than perform. Um,
Mm.
I do love performing. Absolutely. I love it, love it, love it. It's the exploration that I find exciting. I not just like doing piles of research and reading. I just mean finding out what makes people tick, finding out what what prompts someone to behave the way they do. Why are they making the choices that they're making, and how do I make that relatable to other people? How do I communicate? How do I form a community? How do I form a community in this room? Do you know, when you walk into rehearsal on the first day, you might know people there, but even if you've known them for a very long time, I mean, that's some shorthand. There are certain things that, you've known them for a long time, but you're telling a different story. How is that community going to get formed? How are we going to help each other do that? It's called play for a reason, and I do like to play. I like exploring. Anything can happen. Anything. You have parameters. Here's the particular story. The going from point A, B, C, D, all the way through the alphabet. Here are this is what you get told by the script. Who you are, what you want, how are you going to get it, where are you going, all the rest of that. But then it's just, how do you do that with this group of people? Are you going to agree? Do you have to agree? How do you make this up? And that is where you go all the way back to being that kid on the sidewalk with your Barbie dolls and Tonka trucks. You're like, oh, you know what? And now this. This is not a thing you think about as a child. You go, oh, you know what I do? And then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And then you get into this world, excuse me, you get into this world where that's your job. And one day it strikes you that that's your whole job. A lot of actors will tell you that the ideas that they had on the first day of rehearsal were actually correct. Their instincts on the first day were actually correct. And you spend most of rehearsal trying to figure out a path that you can take to make sure you get back to that correct answer that you had on the first day.
It's
Um,
interesting, or something that I'm putting together in my mind as I hear you talk is the joy of that sense of play and the engagement in that, and how we get to do the same thing we got to do as children, and how some of the people that you have said may not give actors respect that they are due because it's play. How could it be that hard, right?
it's not this fun all the time. When I say, talking about, that this is the thing that I did as a kid and I get to do it now, I don't mean that I act like I'm 4 years old. I mean the sense of imagination, the sense of creativity, and the excitement of it, the commitment to it. If I travel to do something, I've had the opportunity to be on tour. I was on tour with a show for a year, and
What show is that?
Matilda, the musical, and the best places and the best experiences over that year for me were when I could walk into wherever I would. It doesn't matter what town, did not matter the town. If you find someone in that town and you say, what is it that you like about being here? What is it that you like about what you're doing, where you are? If you find someone who's truly who's an advocate for where they are and what they're doing, they will tell you why. And they're excited about it and they're passionate about it. And they will tell you other places to go where you are, where you will get that same sense of excitement and commitment and passion and service. Um, and so, we did. Now, that might not seem to have anything to do with what I'm talking about as a performer, but in terms of inviting people, if they're willing to come into the room and they're willing to be in a place that is not their own, it could very well be that if you tell your story as well as you possibly can, as honestly as you possibly can, and do everything you can to invite them and engage them, that they might find some aspect of your performance or their experience that relates to their own. It's not up to you to make that connection. It's just up to you to open the door to it
Hmm.
so that they know that that's possible. It's not about telling people how to live. It's not about telling people what they're supposed to know. It's about giving them the opportunity to learn something, to ask something, to have a reaction to something. It's not about manipulating them. It's not about manipulating them or forcing them or telling them they need to shut up and be quiet and because you're just so important. It's not about any of that. It's really just it is just about inviting them to think in a different way. And when they start thinking that way, then they become that kid on the sidewalk. They become that. It's amazing and it's beautiful to watch.
Before we leave, I have a little exercise that I do at the end of each of these, and it's called simply three, two, one. The task is three
Okay.
actors whom you admire deeply and a quick reason why.
I'm a huge Martin Freeman fan. I'm
Hmm.
a, yeah, I am. It's not just that he's really, really good at what he does. He is a really good actor, I think. But you can put actors side by side, and there are people who are technically amazing, and you can really appreciate what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but they're technically perfect. And then there are people who just have the thing that you want to watch. They have the candy. There's something about they can be technically perfect, but there's something that they transcend. There's something that comes through all of that. Um, for me, he's just one of them. I find him ultimately watchable. His responses to things are often they're so subtle and tiny, and they say everything. And he can have five reactions in the space of a second. It literally would just go, and he will work an entire universe of responses. And I just like I when I'm watching him, I find myself watching like this. I just like I'm close to the screen, just like, oh my god, this guy.
Okay,
I
two. Who's
okay.
your second one?
I really like watching Alana Arenas. Alana
Who's a
Arenas,
fellow company member at Steppenwolf, right?
she is. Uh, she didn't, but whether she is or is not, no, she's just again, it's the way she inhabits her work. Around her, as far as I'm concerned, around her is a she loves what she's doing. Is the
Hmm.
thing that I always feel is that whatever work she's doing, however she gets there technically, however she this, that, and the other, it begins with a sense of love for what she's doing. You get the feeling that she just wouldn't be there if she didn't really believe in it. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. I just know that that's how I feel.
One more.
I know. I don't. Maybe it's just the community that you're in for any length of time that you're in it, but I feel really lucky that I know so many people who are just so damn good at what they do. And I just love watching them. you just kind of love it. It's like candy. Um,
I'm going to give you a pass.
I know there's just too there too there really are too many.
Two, trick and a treat. The
Okay.
trick is a trick of the trade,
Okay.
and the treat is something that you still delight in, which you've probably already shared with us.
Okay. So the trick is, this is so stupid. If you don't want to sneeze, if you don't want to sneeze, try this. I'm not saying it's successful every time, but if you take your tongue, or you're just very gently over the roof of your mouth, especially where you can feel the ribs up there, like toward the
Mm-hmm.
top. If you do that and then toward the center lightly, it will often stop you from sneezing.
That
So
is fabulous.
I have stood on stage and gone, or not, just like if my mouth were moving, I would go, oh my god, oh my god, oh yeah.
That's fabulous, and a trick that's totally unknown to me, so I appreciate that.
It's so stupid, and it doesn't work all the time. For me, the treat is, gosh, okay. I can't believe you asked me. I was just thinking about this the other day. I was doing a play in Michigan in a tiny theater, and I was doing this play that had lots of vignettes, and it was "A My Name Is Alice." And at one point, I was playing this. I was 26, playing a little old lady, sitting there talking about going to the beauty parlor, whatever else. And to this day, I don't remember the monologue. I don't remember it. But what I remember is something happened in that moment where I whatever I said, it made the audience laugh. And then the laughter became like a really big laugh, which I found kind of surprising because it wasn't that big a thing. But then I don't know, I'm going to get weepy again. Then it kind of like it started to die down, but then it happened again. And not it wasn't that it was just so hilarious. It was just they suddenly kind of it was like they became aware of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly there wasn't a play anymore. They laughed and then they laughed and then it kind of died down. And then the laughter was more about, my goodness, we're all laughing at this. And then I don't know, I don't know how to say it other than this. It was like a huge wave just came over me from them. It was like the entire room for just a moment was, isn't this beautiful?
Hmm.
And so the laughter, it wasn't raucous applause. Or, I mean, they were applauding, but it wasn't, ha ha ha, this is the most amazing thing ever. It was just, yes, this is a really great moment. Isn't this a really great moment? And I'll never forget it. It was warm. It was larger than anything any of us had anticipated. It was like the moment was larger than anything anybody in the audience thought they were going to get when they came in the door. It was certainly more than anything I expected when I sat down to tell that story. It was a moment that was larger than all of us. That is that is the treat when you have that moment where suddenly everything is just expanded and there's just all the room in the universe, and it was something that you just didn't expect.
One,
Okay.
one thing that you still are reaching for, aspiring to, want to accomplish?
If there's one thing that I want to continue to be, that I wish I could keep doing and I will always do, it is to keep growing toward something more real, more honest, more effective, so that when people have occasion to see me standing on a stage doing something, it's not about convincing them. I mean, my job, yes, of course, is to convince them, but it's it's just so that you're present. Be here now. That's that's all I want in my life. And it's all I want in my work. Just be here now. Be here.
Ora Jones, thank you very much for your time.
I love you very much, and I cannot believe it took this for us to be back in touch with each other again. But now that I have your information, I'll be in touch with you.